The smell hit Heesung an hour before the pitch. He looked up from the slides. Aiden was standing across the conference table with one hand at the side of his neck, and the scent rolling off him was no longer the polished scent of a man on his suppressants. It was an alpha in the first minutes of a rut. "Aiden, when did you last take your suppressant?" "I intended to take it." The pitch was in 58 minutes. The other firm's senior partner was already in the building. Heesung counted the doors between the conference room and the only door on this floor that locked from the inside, and he picked up his folder and he said very calmly, "Walk with me." Aiden followed him without another word. Down the corridor, past the receptionist's empty desk, past the row of glass-walled offices. At the executive bathroom at the end of the hall, Heesung punched the code, opened the door, pushed Aiden through it, and locked it behind them. Before we dive in, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy today's story. 3 months earlier, late on a gray morning in autumn, Heesung Shin was summoned to the top floor of the Daeyang Logistics Tower in Gangnam by a chairman who, in 6 years of working for him, had never once summoned Heesung directly. The chairman summoned other people. Heesung was the one who summoned for him. Heesung managed the chairman's calendar, his correspondence, his investor relations, his car service, his dinner reservations. On the morning he was told the chairman wanted him upstairs, he took the elevator with a folder in his hand. The folder contained nothing. Its purpose was psychological. The chairman's office took up the corner of the top floor. 2 walls of glass. On a clear day, the view ran past the river. On a morning like this one, it was a wash of gray and pale gold. The chairman stood at the window with his hands clasped behind his back, looking out at the city the way men of his generation looked at things they had built and could not stop revising. "Sit," the chairman said without turning. Heesung sat. "Tea is coming." "Already ordered." The chairman turned. He smiled at Heesung the way he always smiled at him, which was the smile of a man who had been generously dealt with by the world. He came around the desk and sat across from Heesung. The junior assistant outside brought tea and disappeared without being asked twice. "Heesung, I am going to ruin your year." "All right. You are not going to ask why." "You will tell me." The chairman laughed, short and dry. "You are the only person in this building who lets me get to the point." "Sir, the point." "My son is hopeless." Heesung said nothing. There was no useful reply to that sentence. He had met Aiden Park twice. The first time was at a holiday function years ago, where Aiden had spent the evening on a terrace with expensive whiskey and informed a junior accountant that her dress was, Heesung remembered the exact phrasing, trying very hard. The second time was the prior summer at the funeral of Aiden's mother, where Aiden had stood beside his father in a black suit and said nothing and gone home as soon as the ritual permitted. At the funeral, Heesung had registered that Aiden did not, in fact, look like the kind of person who informed junior accountants their dresses were trying very hard. He looked like a man wearing a mask he had not chosen and could not put down. Heesung had been hired to manage the chairman, not the chairman's son. He filed the observation and went back to work. "He has been at this company since he graduated," the chairman went on. "He has been fired from or quit 5 departments: operations, finance, business development, marketing, legal, which was generous of me because he does not read. He has burned through every department head I have given him. They all give the same report. He is clever, he is not stupid, he is simply absent. He shows up when he is required to show up, and otherwise he is somewhere else. And one of these days a tabloid will photograph him in the wrong country at the wrong hour with the wrong person, and I will have to explain to my board why the heir of this company cannot be trusted to inherit it." Heesung waited. "I am giving him to you." Heesung blinked. "Sir, I am reassigning you. Temporarily. Starting next Monday, you will be his chief of staff. The role does not exist yet. I am inventing it. Your salary increases. You report to me, not to him. He will not have the authority to dismiss you or demote you. You will sit beside him every day and you will teach him this company as you have learned it. You will not allow him to be late, you will not allow him to be rude, and if he tries to make you fetch his dry cleaning, you will hand the receipt to my assistant and we will laugh about it later. Sir, you are not refusing. I am noticing that I have not been asked. The chairman's smile warmed. Heesung. I am asking. I am asking badly because I am a man of my generation, and we ask badly. But I am asking. Heesung considered the request. He considered the chairman whom he had served for 6 years and to whom he owed the architecture of his current life. He considered Aiden, about whom he had no particular feelings except low-grade institutional irritation, the kind he reserved for unjustified budget lines. He considered his small, warm apartment in Seongbuk-gu and his quiet evenings, and how he had only recently stopped being 22 and exhausted. All right, Heesung said. All right. I have conditions. Of course you do. I am not his maid. Agreed. I am not his alibi. Agreed. If he tries to interfere with the boundaries of this role, I report it to you, and you do not let him. Agreed. And when this works, you let me come back. The chairman looked at him for a long moment. He had the look of a man who had been about to say something kind and had decided, for Heesung's sake, to keep it brief. When this works, I will let you come back. All right. One more thing, Heesung. Sir, he is going to be unkind to you for several weeks. I would apologize in advance, except apologies do not work on the kind of unkindness he produces. So instead I will say this: he has been told he is hopeless every day of his life since he was old enough to understand the word. He has built a personality out of the assumption. He will be unkind because he is afraid you will agree with the people who told him. Do not agree. Do not be kind either. Be honest. Honesty is the only thing that has not yet been tried. Heesung absorbed this. Sir, why me? Because you are the only person on this floor who has never tried to get anything out of me except the salary you negotiated, the job description you were promised, and a functional pen. My son has been surrounded since birth by people who wanted things from him. I am not going to surround him with one more. Go. Heesung stood. He did not say, thank you. He left the office with the empty folder still in his hand, took the elevator down 1 floor, walked back to his desk, sat down, opened a new document, titled it Aiden, and began to make a list. The list was 3 pages long by the end of the afternoon. It had headings. It had a budget line for replacement office equipment, because Heesung's read on the man suggested something was going to get broken in the first month, and he wanted it accounted for in advance. He went home that night. He ate a small bowl of something he had made earlier in the week. He took his suppressant. He stood at the kitchen window with the lights off and looked at the small slice of sky between the buildings opposite, and he thought, with the cool clarity he usually applied to other people's problems, that he was probably going to dislike Aiden for a few weeks and then he was going to fix him. He did not consider, that night, the possibility that Aiden Park might fix back. On his first morning, Heesung arrived at the office before 8. Aiden arrived well after 10. Heesung had spent the intervening time reorganizing the bookshelf, the desk drawers, the filing cabinet, and the small refrigerator in the corner. He had drafted 3 documents. By the time Aiden walked into his own office, Heesung was at the side table by the window with the documents in front of him and a cup of coffee that had gone cold in his hand. Aiden Park, in person and in daylight, was taller than Heesung remembered. Charcoal coat, dark slacks, no tie. Hair pushed back like he had done it with his fingers in the elevator. He was holding a paper cup from a place several blocks away and looking at Heesung like a person looks at a piece of furniture that had been rearranged without permission. Who are you? Heesung Shin, your chief of staff. Your father has reassigned me. My what? Chief of staff. The role is new. The arrangement is temporary. We have a meeting in an hour. I have moved your other commitments. Your driver has been informed. Your father will join us at noon for an update." Aiden looked at the rearranged office. He looked at Heesung. He set the paper cup down on his own desk, picked up a stack of mail from the corner, set it back down, and walked over to the side table. He held out his hand. The hand contained the empty paper cup. Heesung looked at the cup. He looked at Aiden. He did not take it. "I am not your assistant. I did not ask if you were. You held out a cup. I am throwing it away. The bin is by the door." There was a small silence. Heesung registered, with some annoyance, that he had misread the situation, and with more annoyance that Aiden had registered him misreading it, and with the most annoyance that Aiden had not made a face about it. Aiden simply turned, walked to the bin, dropped the cup in, came back and sat down across from Heesung. "All right, Chief of Staff, tell me what we are doing today." He didn't mean it. The drawl was very faintly back in his voice, the lazy curl of a man who had been told something was happening to him and was waiting to see how long it took to bore him. But he had sat down. He was looking at Heesung. He had not yet been rude in any way Heesung could file. Heesung opened the document on top. "Today we are going to do 3 things. We are going to meet your existing team. We are going to review the Western Corridor distribution proposal, which is the one your father wants you to lead. We are going to have lunch with your father, at which you will not be late, you will not be on your phone, and you will not refer to the proposal as a thing my father owns." Aiden's eyebrow went up. "Why would I refer to it that way?" "Because you did. 4 years ago, at a gala. There is footage. I have watched it." "Ah. I am bringing it up so you know I have watched it, and so you are aware I will be bringing it up periodically as a corrective." "I see. Are we going to have a problem?" Aiden considered him. His eyes in the office lighting were dark. He had the contained stillness of a man trained to negotiate without showing his hand, except in his case the training was probably accidental and the hand was probably empty. He looked at Heesung for a fraction longer than was comfortable. Then his face did something Heesung had not been expecting. The drawl pulled out of his voice, the bored curl flattened. He looked briefly almost curious. "Are you going to be like this every day?" "Yes." "All right. All right. My father warned you I was going to be unkind." "He did. Has he warned me about you?" "No," Heesung said. "I am his surprise." Aiden looked at him for a moment. Then he smiled. The smile was small, not charming. It was the look of a man who had just registered that he was, after a long time of nothing happening, in the presence of something that was going to happen. "All right, surprise, let us begin." The first week was a survey. Heesung surveyed Aiden as he surveyed any new system. With a clipboard. With a deadline. With no particular emotional investment in what he found. He watched Aiden in meetings. He watched him with department heads, most of whom had been on the receiving end of Aiden in previous failed assignments, and were therefore wary in a way they tried not to show. Aiden was rude some of the time, and disengaged most of the time. He was capable of producing a focused, intelligent response only rarely. But the rare moments interested Heesung because they suggested the rest was a costume. He took notes. He did not share them with Aiden. In the meantime, he resisted. The resistances were small. On the 3rd day, Aiden tried to send Heesung downstairs for his lunch. Heesung looked at him without expression. "I will not be doing that." Later that week, Aiden tried to have Heesung reschedule a personal appointment. "Your personal calendar is your personal responsibility. I have given you the contact information for the salon." Near the end of the week, Aiden tried to dictate an email, leaning back in his chair with his eyes half closed, like the act of speaking. The words was already a kindness. Heesung listened to the first 2 sentences, took the laptop firmly out of Aiden's hands, and rewrote the email himself. "That is not what I said." "That is what you meant? It is also grammatically correct, which what you said was not." "You took my laptop. I returned it. It is in front of you." Heesung, Aiden. Aiden smiled. It was a different smile from the first one. It suggested he was beginning to enjoy something and had not expected to. Heesung registered the smile. He did not allow himself to think about it. The second week, the resistance became teaching. Heesung began carrying the Western Corridor proposal everywhere he went. He left a copy on Aiden's desk, then on the side table, then in Aiden's car, which Aiden discovered when he reached for his sunglasses one morning. Aiden glared at the proposal. The proposal did not move. You are everywhere. The proposal is everywhere. I am only one place. Heesung. Read the first section by Thursday. I will quiz you on it on Friday. If you fail the quiz, your father has agreed to have us meet at his house on Saturday morning to discuss the matter. You scheduled a punishment with my father. I scheduled an alternative. Read the proposal, Aiden. He read it, slowly, with visible resentment. On Friday morning, he sat down across from Heesung and answered the quiz questions with exactly the level of effort necessary to pass, no more. The moment he had passed, he looked at Heesung with an expression that was almost satisfied, almost daring. It was the look of a man who had taken a test and not failed it, and was now considering for the first time in a long time the possibility that this was a thing he could do. Heesung made a small mark in his notebook. What was that mark? Nothing. Heesung, drink your coffee. Aiden drank his coffee. He kept looking at Heesung over the rim of the cup. The third week, things started arriving on Heesung's desk that he had not asked for. A folder, organized correctly, with the routing data Heesung had complained twice about being missing. Aiden had assembled it himself. A printed schedule for a logistics meeting Heesung had not yet built one for. Aiden had taken the notes during the previous meeting and turned them into a schedule. A bottle of water at Heesung's elbow on a Wednesday afternoon when Heesung had been on calls since 9 and had not stopped to drink anything. Heesung looked at the bottle of water. He looked at Aiden. You are doing things. I am doing things. For me. For the project. Aiden. For you. Drink your water. Heesung drank his water. He did not say anything for the rest of the afternoon. He sat at his desk and registered for the first time a thing he had been refusing to register, which was that the line between him fixing Aiden and Aiden adjusting to him had started moving without his permission. The pitch was at the end of the month. They began rehearsing in the second to last week. Aiden's first rehearsal was bad. His second was better. By the third, he had stopped slouching at the podium without being told. By the fourth, he was crisp. On a Wednesday afternoon in the rehearsal room, Aiden was on the third pass through the slide deck. He was at the section that explained the Western Corridor's projected volume increase. He had stumbled on the same paragraph 3 times the previous day. Heesung had told him, the previous day, that he was rushing it. Aiden hit the paragraph. He slowed down. He hit every number. He hit every attribution. He landed the close. He looked up at Heesung. He was breathing slightly harder than the pace of the rehearsal warranted. Heesung said, "Good." Aiden looked at him. The fluorescent light caught the side of his face. Something about his pupils was wider than it should have been at that distance. Heesung registered the dilation. He registered the slight flush at Aiden's throat. He registered his own pulse, which had picked up for a reason he was not going to examine. Again, Heesung said, same section. Once more. Aiden ran the section again. Heesung watched him from the back of the room with his arms folded across his chest. By the third pass, the proximity between them in the empty rehearsal room had become a thing in itself, the kind of charge that builds in rooms without anyone saying anything to build it. And Aiden, on the third pass, glanced at Heesung between 2 lines of the script in a way that was very briefly not professional. Heesung kept his face neutral. Better. Go home. Sleep. Aiden went home. Heesung stayed in the rehearsal room for another 15 minutes after he was sure Aiden had cleared the building, sitting in the front row, and he did not allow himself to articulate what he had just been doing for the last 20 minutes, which was watching a man he was supposed to be fixing become someone he was no longer sure he wanted to hand back. On the morning of the pitch, Heesung arrived at the office early. Aiden arrived not long after. They went over the slides one final time. They had 2 cups of coffee each. Aiden was crisp and slightly nervous, and Heesung's in a way Heesung was not going to examine in any document. 1 hour before the meeting, Aiden went pale. "Aiden, I am fine. You are not fine." The scent in the room sharpened. Heesung knew what it was before his rational brain caught up. He had worked on an executive floor for 6 years. He had been around alphas in every variety of crisis. The scent he was registering now had nothing to do with stress and everything to do with biology. Seriously. Heesung. Seriously. You forgot your suppressant. Today. The day of the meeting we have been preparing for since November. That meeting. The one in less than an hour. I am aware of the meeting. You are aware of the meeting. The meeting your father will personally fly back from Busan to attend. The one that decides whether we get the Western Corridor rights for the next 6 years. The one I made you rehearse standing up because you kept slouching. Meh, that meeting. Yes. And you forgot a pill. Aiden opened his eyes. The pupils were dark. The scent in the room was no longer a draft. It was a presence. Burnt cedar and struck flint and old smoke, except the flint was striking real fire now, and the cedar was warming, and the smoke had gone deeper. The scent of a candle that had gone out, because everything else in the room had caught instead. "Heesung," Aiden said again, and his voice had dropped half an octave and gone rough in a way Heesung's body registered before his mind did. "Please do not yell at me right now." Heesung swallowed. "I am not yelling. I am processing. It feels like yelling. You will know when I am yelling. Stand up. Walk with me." "Where?" "The bathroom. Now." The walk down the corridor took 20 seconds. The hallway was empty. The executive floor at this hour was a graveyard of half-finished coffee and shut office doors. Heesung steered Aiden past the elevator bank, past the receptionist's empty desk, past the row of glass-walled offices, and into the private bathroom at the end of the corridor that only the top 3 executives and Heesung himself had the code for. He punched the code. The door clicked. He pushed Aiden through, followed him in, locked it. The bathroom was the size of a small apartment. Marble. Brass fixtures. Long counter with 2 sinks. A leather bench by the window where sometimes the head of finance took a nap. Aiden braced both hands on the counter, dropped his head between his shoulders, and breathed like a man trying not to drown. Heesung locked eyes with him in the mirror. "Listen to me. Look at me. Eyes up. Good. I need you to hold still." "Why?" "Because I am going to fix this, and you are going to let me, and then you are going to walk into that boardroom and deliver the pitch we have spent 2 months building. And then you are going to take your suppressant like an actual functioning adult, and we are going to have a very long conversation about the calendar reminder I am about to set on your phone. Hold still." Heesung. "Eyes up." "Aiden. Eyes up." Aiden lifted his head. His eyes met Heesung's. The pupils were huge. The scent in the room had filled it past capacity and was pressing against the walls. Heesung had a decision to make. He made it the way he made every decision on an executive floor. Fast. With full understanding of the cost. Without permission. He turned Aiden by the shoulders to face him. He undid the top button of his own collar. He undid the top button of Aiden's. He stepped into him, tilted his head, and pressed the scent gland on the side of his throat directly against the matching gland on Aiden's. Aiden's hand came up to Heesung's waist before either of them gave it permission. The grip was hard. The grip was not letting go. Aiden made a sound. It was not a word. It was the sound a man makes when something he did not know he was carrying gets put down. A short, broken exhale, almost a laugh, almost a sob. The kind of sound that travels straight from the autonomic nervous system to the back of someone else's neck without passing through any rational mind in transit. Heesung's vision went briefly white at the edges. He had read about compatible scent profiles the same way he had read about northern lights and rare wine vintages as a thing other people experienced. His own scent had been called pleasant. His own scent had been called sharp. The two notes he carried, white pepper and rain on stone, had never in his life done what they were doing now, which was meeting an alpha's scent in the air between them and turning it into something neither of them owned alone. Stone and pepper and smoke and warm grain, rising around them like fog off a paper mill in winter, and Heesung's omega instincts, which he had kept politely seated for the better part of a decade, stood up. He kept his voice flat against Aiden's ear. Listen. Your body went into rut because it stopped detecting an omega in your life and decided you needed to go find one. There is one against your throat. The rut is going to stand down. Breathe in. Aiden breathed in. Heesung felt it in the chest pressed against his. Slower. Through your nose. Good. Out through your mouth. Again. Aiden obeyed. His shoulders dropped. The tremor in his hands quieted. The hand on Heesung's waist did not loosen, but it stopped trembling. Under Heesung's throat, the matching gland was warm and alive, and Heesung could feel the alpha's pulse slowing against his skin in increments that matched the breathing. It took longer than Heesung expected, and ended sooner than he was ready for. He could feel the moment the rut stood down. The pulse settled. The aggressive edge under the scent receded. The two scents in the room stopped pressing against the walls and braided into one signal that filled the space evenly. Aiden's body had asked for an omega. Aiden's body had been given one. The chemistry caught. By the time Heesung stepped back, Aiden was no longer in rut. He was a man whose biology had been told it could rest and had agreed. The hand at Heesung's waist had to be peeled off finger by finger. Heesung rebuttoned his own collar, dried his hand on a towel, and turned away from the mirror so that neither of them had to keep looking at each other in it. You have 20 minutes. I am going to my desk for the backup deck. Wash your face, rebutton your collar. When I come back, you walk into that boardroom and deliver the pitch we built. The compatibility we have just established stays inside this bathroom for the rest of the day. We will discuss it later, when the meeting is over, when you have eaten, when neither of us is in a marble room with a locked door. Is that clear? Heesung, is that clear? Yes. Good. He left. At his desk, he sat down, pressed his hands flat against the surface, and counted to 10 before he stood up again. He retrieved the backup deck from the drawer where he kept the backup deck of everything that mattered. He carried it back down the corridor. He opened the bathroom door. Aiden was at the sink, splashing water on his face. The collar was buttoned. The coat was straight. The eyes that lifted to meet his in the mirror were the eyes of a man who had been, for a short stretch of time, completely undone, and who had reassembled himself with surprising speed. Ready. Ready. They walked to the boardroom. The pitch was perfect. It was perfect in the small ways and in the large ones. Aiden hit every beat they had rehearsed. He attributed the correct credit to the correct departments. He did not slouch. He used the laser pointer like a man who had recently learned what a laser pointer was for. He answered every question from the senior partner of the other firm with a precision that made the senior partner sit up in his chair. Twice during the pitch, his eyes lifted from the deck and found Heesung at the back of the room. Both times the look lasted less than a second. The chairman, in his chair at the head of the table, did not move during the pitch. His eye stayed on his son with an expression Heesung had not seen on his face in 6 years. It was not pride. Pride was the wrong shape. It was the quieter look of a man who had set a problem on his desk a long time ago and had just registered that the problem had solved itself. The contract was signed at the end of the meeting. The senior partner shook Aiden's hand. Then he shook the chairman's hand. Then he walked the length of the boardroom and shook Heesung's hand too. "Your work shows." "Thank you." It is his pitch. The senior partner smiled the smile of a man who had not, in his career, mistaken the source of work for the credit on it. He nodded once and left. The boardroom emptied. The chairman left without speaking to either of them, which was, Heesung knew, his highest form of approval. Aiden stood at the front of the room with the laser pointer still in his hand and watched the door close. "Heesung." "Yes." "Come here." Heesung crossed the room. Aiden's eyes were warm, his mouth a little open. He was the face of a man who had spent 3 months trying to figure out what Heesung was made of, and had, in the bathroom, learned the answer. "I have a list of things I want to say to you. I have had the list for a while. I am not going to say them now, because we are at work and I respect your boundaries and the meeting just ended, and you are about to send me home to take a suppressant. I am going to say one thing. Can I? You can. You are not a fix. You are not a project they handed me. I have been telling myself you are, because that is easier. You are not. I am talking about the 4 weeks before the bathroom, the proposal in my car, the part where you took my laptop, the part where you stopped being someone my father sent and started being someone I wanted to do better for. I have been noticing for a while. Whatever you do with that information is up to you, but I needed to say it." Heesung looked at him. "Go home. Take the suppressant. Sleep until tomorrow morning. Do not message me. The conversation we are not having yet, we are still not having yet." Aiden looked at him. Then he smiled, the smile of a man who had just been turned down without being turned away, and who understood the difference. "All right, I will go home." He went. Heesung stood at the front of the empty boardroom with the slides still on the wall and the braided scent of burnt cedar and rain on stone still in the air around him, and the certain knowledge that whatever he had been pretending was not happening was now, undeniably, happening. He took out his phone. He texted the chairman. The text said only, "Meeting was a success. Boy did well." The chairman replied within the minute. 3 words. "I am aware." Then, after a pause, "Send him home. Tell him to take his medication. I assume you have already done both." Heesung put the phone down. The next 2 months were the part where Heesung stopped being able to lie to himself. It happened in small things. Aiden was different now. The drawl was gone. The cruelty was gone. He still had bad days, when something at home or at the office had reminded him that he had been called hopeless for 30 years, and he could not, on those days, fully shake the assumption. But on the bad days he came in early instead of late, and he sat at his desk with the lights low and asked Heesung questions Heesung answered without commentary, and by mid-afternoon he had usually rebuilt himself. He brought Heesung coffee every morning, the exact preparation, without comment. He memorized Heesung's preferences with the focus of a man who had been told his entire life that he was bad at remembering things and had decided, on the small private matter of Heesung Shin, to be the kind of man who remembered. The week after the pitch, in a meeting with the head of operations, Heesung's wrist brushed Aiden's at the conference table as Aiden reached for a printed page. It was a half-second of contact, sleeve to sleeve. Heesung registered the warmth of Aiden's arm through 2 layers of fabric. He kept his eyes on the page. Aiden did not move his arm. The meeting went on. Heesung could feel Aiden's pulse where their wrists were touching, slow and steady. Aiden did not look at him. Aiden did not move. Aiden simply stayed where he was, against Heesung's wrist, for the rest of the head of operations presentation. And when the meeting ended and they stood up, Aiden pulled his arm back without ever having acknowledged that it had been there. The room emptied. Heesung gathered his papers slowly. Aiden waited until the head of operations had left the room. "Sorry." "You are not sorry." "No, I am not." "Aiden, I am sorry that I did it without asking. I am not sorry that I did it. I will not do it again until you tell me I can." Heesung looked at him. Eat your lunch. He left the room with his pulse louder than he wanted it to be. The midpoint came at a board meeting. The chairman had called it on short notice to update the board on the Western Corridor signing. Aiden was scheduled to deliver a 5-minute summary with Heesung in the room as part of the executive team. Heesung had drafted the summary and the slides and had told Aiden not to deviate from the script. Aiden deviated from the script. He delivered the opening of the summary as written, hitting every beat using the correct numbers. The board, most of whom had not seen Aiden in a meeting since the last department he had been fired from, did the slow recalibration boards do when they are being asked to revise their opinion of a person they had previously written off. Then, near the end of the summary, Aiden put down the laser pointer. There is one thing I want to add. It is not on the slide. It is not in the materials. I am adding it because if I do not, this room will give me credit for work that is not mine. And that is the exact problem this company has been trying to solve about me for a decade, and I refuse to extend it. Heesung Shin built this proposal. Heesung Shin wrote the script you have just heard. Heesung Shin has been my chief of staff for 3 months, and he is the reason this contract is signed, and he is the reason I am standing in front of you right now and not somewhere else. I want him on my permanent team, not as my father's secretary, not as a temporary reassignment, as mine, specifically, as chief of staff to me, with the authority that comes with the title, with the salary that comes with the authority, and with the institutional weight necessary to override me when I am wrong, which is going to be often. Thank you. He picked up the laser pointer. He sat down. The room was, for a long moment, completely silent. The chairman did not look at Aiden. He looked at Heesung. His face did something complicated. The board, taking its cue from the silence, said nothing for the duration of the next agenda item. Heesung sat in the small chair against the wall and kept his face flat. He could feel, around his collar, the small, treacherous warmth of his own scent, doing something it was not supposed to do during a board meeting. He locked it down and kept his eyes on the far wall. Aiden did not look at him. He kept his eyes on the agenda in front of him. He was allowing him space. He had said what he had needed to say and was now waiting for Heesung to decide what to do with it, in private, on his own time, without an audience. The meeting ended. The board filed out. The chairman left. Heesung gathered his materials and turned for the door, and Aiden was at the door before him, holding it open, and the elevator was empty when they got to it. The elevator descended. You cannot do that. I know. You cannot make declarations like that, in front of the board, without warning me. I know. It is unprofessional. It puts your father in a position. It puts me in a position. It puts the board in a position. You cannot. I meant every word. Aiden. Every word, Heesung. If I had warned you, you would have stopped me. I have been thinking about it for 3 weeks. I waited until I was sure. I am sure. The rest is up to you. But I am not going to pretend I have not noticed what you have done for me, and I am not going to let this company give me credit for it. That is the line I am refusing to cross. The rest of the lines are yours to set. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. Heesung walked out. Aiden walked out behind him. That evening, Heesung packed his bag. He stood at Aiden's office door. I am leaving. All right. I will see you tomorrow. You will. He went home. He sat at his kitchen table in his coat for a long stretch, looking at the wall, and when he finally took the coat off, he discovered that his hands were not quite steady, which was the second time in 3 months his hands had not been quite steady, and both times had involved the same person. He took his suppressant. He went to bed. He did not sleep. The crisis arrived 3 weeks later. It arrived as a clip. The clip was less than a minute long. It had been posted to a corporate gossip site early in the morning, and by the time Heesung opened his laptop at his desk, it had been viewed enough times to matter. The clip was of Aiden at a charity gala 4 years earlier, drunk in a tuxedo, leaning into a small handheld camera held by a reporter Heesung did not recognize. Aiden was speaking with the slurred conviction of a man who had not been told no in a long time and did not expect to be. The company is a thing my father owns. I do not care what happens to it. I do not care what happens to any of it. People keep asking me what my plans are. I do not have plans. I do not have plans because I do not have anything to plan for. The company is going to outlive me and my father is going to outlive me, and frankly, I am not sure I am going to outlive the cocktail in my hand. The reporter, off camera, laughed. Aiden laughed too. The clip ended. Heesung watched the clip twice. He closed the laptop. He called the head of corporate communications first and told her to come up. Then he called the chairman's assistant and asked her to clear the chairman's morning. The competing firm, the one that had lost the Western Corridor contract to Daeyang, had circulated the clip to every major outlet in the country, and the partner who had just signed with them was, predictably, calling. He called Aiden. Aiden did not pick up. He called again. Then a third time. He stared at his phone for a long count. He put it down. He stood up, told the head of corporate communications that he was leaving the building for the morning, took the elevator down, hailed a taxi, and gave the driver the address of Aiden's apartment building. The doorman knew him. Heesung took the private elevator and rang the bell. Aiden did not answer. Heesung tried the door. It opened. The apartment was dim. The curtains were drawn. The television in the living room was on with the sound off, playing a news segment about the clip. Aiden was on the floor of the living room in yesterday's shirt, back against the couch, laptop open on his knees, the clip looping on the screen. He looked up. His eyes were red. "I told you to stay off your phone." "I did. You are watching the laptop." He was right. My father. The whole time. He was right. The version of me on that screen is the real version. The version you have been working with for 3 months is the lie. Heesung set his bag down and walked across the living room. He turned off the laptop. He did not sit. He stood over Aiden, hands at his sides, and let him look up at him. "Wash your face. Put on a clean shirt. We are going to your father's office. You are going to apologize publicly, on camera, in your own words. Then we are going to handle the partner. Then you are going to come home and sleep. Stand up." Heesung. "Stand up, Aiden." He did. The apology was filmed in the chairman's office. The chairman watched. The head of corporate communications watched. Heesung stood at the back of the room with his arms folded. Aiden sat in front of the camera with no script, no notes, no advisor at his shoulder. He looked at the camera. He spoke. "My name is Aiden Park. 4 years ago at a charity gala, I said a number of things on video that have resurfaced this morning. The things I said were true when I said them. I want to address that directly because the easy version of this apology is to claim I was drunk, and I was drunk. But I was also a person who had been raised inside a company I did not understand and did not value, and the words I said about it were words I believed. I believed them because I had not done the work to understand what my father has built. I had not done the work because I had decided, very early, that I was not going to be good at it, and that not being good at it gave me permission to not try. I want to apologize to my father for those words. I want to apologize to the men and women who have spent careers building this company, whose work I dismissed on a camera as a thing my father owned. It was not a thing my father owned, it was a thing they built. They deserved better than the version of me on that tape. I cannot undo the words. I can tell you that I no longer believe them. I have spent the last 3 months learning what I should have learned a decade ago, and I am going to spend the next decade earning the right to be the man my father has wanted me to be. I am sorry. That is what I have. Thank you." The recording stopped. The chairman, who had been standing at the window, turned around. He did not say anything for a long moment. Then he walked across the room, put his hand on Aiden's shoulder, kept it there, and said, "Good. That was good. Go home. I will handle the rest." Aiden left first. The chairman caught Heesung at the door. "Heesung." "Sir." "Thank you. Go with him." Heesung went down to the lobby. Aiden's driver was already waiting at the curb. Aiden was in the back seat with his head against the window. "Take him home," Heesung told the driver. "He is going to sleep. I will check on him tomorrow." "You are not coming." "I am not coming. You are going to sleep. I am going back to the office. We need to keep the partner from leaving. That is going to take the rest of my day." "Sleep, Aiden. I will see you tomorrow." Aiden looked at him through the open car door. He did not argue. The car pulled away. Heesung went back upstairs. The first day after the clip was the easy day. The apology was up. The partner had paused the call. The head of corporate communications was managing the press. Heesung worked through it the way he worked through everything, methodically, calmly, and he did not allow himself to think about Aiden until he was in his apartment late at night with the lights off. And even then, he did not allow it for long. The second day was harder. The partner called early. The partner was unhappy. The partner had board members who were also unhappy. Heesung spent the morning on the phone in the chairman's office with the chairman beside him, and they kept the deal. By noon, they had kept the deal. By 2, they had a follow-up dinner scheduled for the end of the week. Aiden did not come into the office. Heesung had told him not to come into the office. He had still expected a message. There was no message. Heesung walked past Aiden's office twice in the afternoon. The lights were off. The door was closed. The folder he had left on Aiden's desk the previous morning with the materials for the next operations meeting was still in the spot he had left it. He sat down at his own desk at 5. He looked at his phone. He drafted a message. He deleted it. He drafted another one. He deleted that too. He set the phone face down on the desk and finished the day's correspondence and went home. On the third day, he went to the apartment. Aiden answered the door this time. He was in a different shirt. He looked like he had slept too much rather than not enough, which was a worse look on him than Heesung had been prepared for. The apartment behind him was clean. The curtains were open. "I told you I would check on you." "I know. I have been calling." "I know. You did not answer." "I know." Heesung walked past him into the apartment. He set his bag down on the entryway table. He stood in the living room with his arms at his sides. Aiden stayed at the door, hand still on the handle, like he was waiting for Heesung to either tell him to leave his own apartment or tell him to come over. The deal held. "I saw. The partner is meeting us Friday. Good." "Aiden." "Heesung. What are you doing?" Aiden closed the door. He came into the living room. He stopped about 2 meters away from Heesung. He did not sit down. "I am trying to figure out how to come back to work without dragging the last 48 hours with me. I am trying to figure out whether the version of myself I delivered into a camera was true or whether I was performing for you, because I knew you would be in the room. I am trying to figure out whether I am allowed to call you, or whether the silence is what you want, or whether the silence is what I am supposed to want, and I cannot figure out the answer to any of these questions because the only person whose opinion I trust on any of them is currently standing in my living room, and I am too afraid of him to ask." Heesung looked at him. "You are not afraid of me." "I am extremely afraid of you, Heesung." "Why?" "Because 3 months ago you walked into my office and refused to take a cup out of my hand, and the first thing I felt about you was relief. I felt relief, Heesung, because somebody had finally arrived who was not going to flatter me, and I did not know I had been waiting for that until you did it. And every day since then, I have been more relieved, and every day since then, I have known more clearly that if I lose you, I go back to the man I was on that camera, and I cannot be him again. I am not strong enough to be him again." Heesung did not say anything for a stretch. Then he said, "You are not going to lose me." Aiden closed his eyes. "But I need you to do something. Anything. I need you to apologize. To me. Properly. Not for the clip. Not for the gala. For the first morning." Aiden opened his eyes. "For what I did with the cup. For the cup. For the email you tried to dictate. For sending me downstairs for your lunch. For all of it. The first week, Aiden, I want you to apologize for the first week." "That was 3 months ago." "I know how long it was. You won. I did not win. I refused, which is not the same thing. You spent the first week treating me like a piece of office equipment that had been assigned to you against your preferences, and I refused to be that, and you registered that I was refusing, and you adjusted. I have been waiting 3 months for the part where you say the words. I have not been asking, because I did not want you to apologize because I asked. I wanted you to apologize because you saw it. You saw it standing in front of a camera apologizing to your father 2 days ago. You did not see it standing in front of me. I am telling you now. I want you to see it. Aiden was very still. You are right. Say it. I am sorry, Heesung. I am sorry for the first week. I am sorry I handed you a cup like you were the bin. I am sorry I tried to dictate an email to you with my eyes closed. I am sorry I sent you downstairs for my lunch. I am sorry I treated you like a piece of office equipment for 7 days because I had spent 30 years being told I was useless and I needed someone to be smaller than me, and you refused. And instead of being grateful for the refusal, I tried to break it. I am sorry. You should not have had to refuse. You should never have had to refuse anything to me. I am sorry. I am going to spend the rest of however long you let me make it not happen again. Heesung swallowed. All right. Heesung. All right. Thank you. That is what I needed. Heesung. Yes. Come here. Heesung crossed the 2 meters between them. He stopped in front of Aiden. He did not touch him. He waited. Aiden lifted his hand, slowly, and put it against the side of Heesung's neck, palm against the gland, and the scent in the room shifted in the small private way that meant nobody was performing anything. I love you, Aiden said. I know. Have known, Heesung. I know. Aiden. Yes, I love you too. I am only telling you now because I do not want it to go to your head. It is going to my head. I am aware. Heesung leaned in. He kissed him. The kiss was short and certain and not a question. When he pulled back, Aiden's eyes were closed. Open your eyes. He did. I am not a project. You were never one either. We are going to start there. The rest of it we will figure out. Do not start a second project on me. I will know. I will not. Good. Heesung. Yes. Stay. I am staying. That night, in the apartment in Hanam-dong with the curtains open and the lights soft, the combined scent in the room rose around them, stone and pepper and smoke and warm grain, and Heesung breathed it in and felt the omega he had kept politely seated for the better part of a decade. Finally, fully, stand up. They did not bond that night. They did not need to. They sat on the couch with their shoulders touching, and Aiden's hand stayed wrapped around Heesung's wrist, and they watched the city through the window without speaking for a long stretch, and Heesung registered, with the cool clarity he usually applied to other people's problems, that he had become one of the other people's problems, and that he was unbothered by it for the first time in his adult life. Aiden's thumb traced a slow line along the inside of Heesung's wrist. Heesung did not move. Heesung. Yes. You said the bathroom would not happen again until we were not in a marble room with a locked door. I did say that. We are not in a marble room. We are not. The door is not locked. It is not. Heesung looked at him. The light from the window caught the side of Aiden's face. The pupils were wider than the light explained. Aiden. Yes. Lock the door. Aiden stood, walked to the front door, locked it, and came back. He did not sit on the couch. He sat on the rug at Heesung's feet and put his head against Heesung's knee. Heesung looked down at him. He put his hand in Aiden's hair. Aiden made a small sound, the sound a man makes when something he did not know he was carrying gets put down for the second time in his life. The night went on quietly from there. Heesung did not let the moment escalate further than it had earned, because escalation was something he believed in earning. But he kept his hand in Aiden's hair, and he did not move it, and Aiden did not move his head, and the combined scent in the room settled into the walls and stayed there. And for the first time in 3 months, Heesung did not have a single line item in his mind that needed managing. He went home in the morning anyway. He went home because he wanted to come back. He came back the next evening, and the evening after, and by the end of the week his toothbrush was on Aiden's counter, and his suppressants were in Aiden's medicine cabinet, and the apartment in Songbuk-gu had become the place where he kept his books and his winter coats. 2 years later, in a house in Pyeongchang-dong with a view of the slope rising behind it, Aiden was on the floor of a small upstairs room with a flat-pack crib in pieces around him and an instruction manual that he had read 3 times, and that, he now suspected, had been illustrated by someone who had never assembled a crib. By any measure of his pre-Heesung life, he was a different man. He had been CEO for a little under a year. The chairman had retired the previous spring to a house outside the city that he visited about half as often as he had said he would, because the truth, as it turned out, was that the chairman could not quite stop calling Heesung every Sunday to ask, very casually, how the company was doing. Heesung answered the calls. Aiden, in the next room, listened to the answers and was quietly content to be married to a man whose former boss called him every Sunday for an unpaid consult. The marriage itself had happened the previous spring, in a small ceremony with a small guest list, in a private room of a restaurant Heesung had picked because the food was good and the chairs were comfortable. The chairman had cried. Aiden had not, because Aiden had spent the morning of the ceremony being told by Heesung that if he cried at the altar, Heesung would be embarrassed for him, which had worked through the opening of the ceremony, after which Aiden had nearly cried twice and recovered both times. The bonding had happened the night of the ceremony. Aiden had spent the month since in a state of biological recalibration that he had not gotten used to and was not in any hurry to. The twins had been confirmed at a recent appointment. They had known about the pregnancy for some time, but the twins were a recent development, and Aiden had been trying to think about it in a logical and grown-up way for a number of days and failing, because his version of thinking about it kept resolving into him sitting on the floor of various rooms in the house, staring at the wall and being, again, more in love with his husband than he had been the day before, which was how he had ended up this morning on the floor of the nursery, building a crib and building it badly. Heesung appeared in the doorway. He was 6 months along. He was wearing one of Aiden's older shirts, which fit him better now than it ever had, and a pair of soft trousers, and he was holding a mug of tea in one hand and standing in the doorframe with the slight tilt of weight that Aiden had learned to recognize as Heesung being tired and pretending not to be. Heesung looked at the crib pieces. He looked at Aiden. The side panels are reversed. They are not. They are. The brackets are upside down. The supports run from outside to inside. You have them running from inside to outside. The panels are reversed. You have done the entire frame backwards. Aiden looked at the frame. The frame was, on inspection, backwards. How are you doing this from the doorway? I am doing this from the doorway because I have read the manual. When? While you were at the office last week. I read all the manuals for everything we have bought for them. I have them in a folder. I have an opinion about every single piece of furniture in this room. I have been saving the opinion. Heesung. Yes. Come fix it. Heesung came in. He sat down on the floor beside Aiden, which took a few seconds longer than it would have a month ago, and which Aiden watched quietly. Heesung set down the mug, picked up the instruction manual, looked at the frame, looked at Aiden. You are not going to be useful. No. You are going to sit there and look at me. I am. All right. Sit there. Look at me. Pass me the small bag of screws when I ask. Aiden sat. Aiden looked at him. Heesung worked. The frame came apart in pieces. The pieces went back together. Heesung's hands moved over the wood with the small economical competence of a man who had not, in his life, met a system he could not eventually understand. Aiden sat beside him with the bag of screws in his lap and watched and thought with the same quiet, ridiculous clarity he had been having on a regular basis for 2 years that he was the luckiest man he had ever met. Screw, Heesung said without looking up. Aiden passed him the screw. Heesung set the screw, turned it, and looked at the bracket and then the frame. The frame this time was facing the correct direction. Good. Heesung. What? I love you. Heesung looked at him. His face, which had spent 2 years getting incrementally less flat in Aiden's presence, did the small, soft thing it did now, when Aiden caught him off guard. "I know. Pass me the other screw." Aiden passed him the screw. Heesung set the screw. He sat back. The crib stood. The crib was, against the odds and against the design failures of one half of its assembly team, fully and correctly assembled, standing in the middle of the small upstairs room, ready for the children that were coming. Heesung looked at the crib. He looked at Aiden. "Aiden." "Yes. I love you too. I am only telling you now because I do not want it to go to your head. It is going to my head. I am aware." Heesung. "What?" "Come here." Heesung came over. Aiden put his arm around him. They sat on the floor of the small upstairs room with the crib in front of them and the slope behind the house rising up through the window, and the late winter light coming through the window and lying across the floor, and the bonded scent of stone and pepper and smoke and warm grain rising between them and settling, and the children that were coming asleep somewhere inside Heesung in a place neither of them could see, and the rest of it, whatever the rest of it was coming. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the story, tell me your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear from you.